commander may be used, but documentation of receipt of the notice is important. This notice to the base commander must also be made when reviewing text amendments relative to telecommunication towers or windmills, or provision for a new major subdivision or substantial enlargement of existing subdivision within 5 miles of the base.
Would the National Guard be included in like out here?
I don't know. I was thinking about that whenever I watched this morning, and I was curious if that would be included. I don't know if they're thinking of more of a, I don't know if that's a base, or thinking of like a base, like Fort Bragg.
You'd have helicopter fly-ins would be the thing, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if that's technically called a base, or is it more of a, like a station or something. I don't know. I'd have to look into it.
I've seen a few of your two men out there.
Yeah.
Well, outside the city limits, go right there.
Yeah, they're probably though within 5 miles of a city limit line. It's definitely interesting. Something to see if that was sufficing. What they were thinking of military base, or they're thinking something like a brag or somewhere like that.
Perhaps actually.
You get them set up down here, I'll drop it down.
Local governments have an alternative to mail notice for larger rezoning. If a rezoning covers more than 50 properties with 50 different owners, local governments have the option of substituting 2 half-page newspaper ads for the mailed notice. If this alternative is used, a mailing must still be made to property owners who live outside the newspaper's area of circulation.
Is that how they did it when they upzoned?
I've seen that done.
On-site posting of a hearing notice is also required for all zoning map amendments. Each local government has discretion as to the number and size of the signs that are used and on the timing of the mandatory posting, so long as the posting provides reasonable notice to interested persons. The statutes do not mandate the content of the sign. Wording such as zoning hearing notice or public hearing is sufficient. Most signs include contact information, such as a phone number for the city or county planning office, to obtain details about the hearing or the proposed action. If multiple parcels are proposed for rezoning, it is not necessary to post each parcel, but sufficient notices must be posted to give reasonable notice of the proposed action. If a rezoning is initiated by someone other than the owner of the property affected or the local government, the landowner must be provided actual notice of the hearing. This notice can be accomplished by personal delivery or by a mailing that verifies receipt. The content of the published and mailed notice should include a brief description of the subject of the hearing, the date, time, and location of the hearing, and a contact source for more detailed information. Many notices also advise that changes to the proposed amendment may be made in response to comments received. The full text of an amendment does not need to be included, but the explanation should have enough detail to allow an interested person to understand the nature of the proposal. The general rule of thumb is to put sufficient detail in the notice to let an average citizen know enough about what is being proposed to decide whether or not to attend the hearing, submit comments, or to seek more information. For example, it would be sufficient in our case if the notice said the purpose of the hearing is to receive comments about a proposal to rezone the property at 1521 Main Street from single-family residential zoning to commercial zoning. notice of the city council hearing was published in the Normalton Gazette 2 weeks before the hearing, and again the week before the hearing. A sign about the hearing was put on the site 2 weeks before the hearing. However, due to a clerical mix-up in the planning office, notices of the hearing were not mailed to the neighboring property owners until 4 days prior to the hearing. On the next slide, you'll see 3 statements, and select the one that is true. Once you have selected the correct answer, click the Submit button to receive feedback. When you're ready to move to start the quiz, select the Continue button on the slide.
I like putting these in my sheet.
Is true. See.
Yeah, cut and dry. Black and white.
See? Now,
Oh.
The correct answer is C. All of the various notice requirements must be strictly met.
we got
The statutes require that the
On
mail
resume.
notice be deposited at the post office at least 10, but not more than 25 days prior to the hearing. The fact that some or even all of the neighbors may have actually gotten notice does not excuse a failure to meet the statutory notice requirement.
See, I would, if that happened, I would want to let the applicant know that this was an issue and see if they want to proceed, or I would personally advise the applicant want to send the notices again and re-advertise it and do it right.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, can you so you would reset the date of the minute of the public
At the
hearing?
next meeting, you'd have to reset it and then re-advertise and put it back out again.
Start all over, in other
All
words.
over for another month.
Yeah.
But that would then make the applicant, if somebody then wanted to come back and contest it, they could contest it and say, well, I wasn't properly notified of your rezoning. That's now 6 months down, they maybe find out about it when the bulldozer rolls up on the site
Yeah.
to start doing construction, and they have to stop.
And then we get sued.
So I'd rather back up and take an extra month to do it right than just keep on going.
Continue with the night of the hearing on Melanie's application to rezone the Main Street parcel has arrived. Melanie is ready to tell the council why they should approve her request. A room full of neighbors are present and ready to tell the council why Melanie's proposal would have a terrible impact on them. While some rezonings are routine and non-controversial, rezonings are often one of the most visible and hotly debated issues that come before city councils and county boards of commissioners. The decisions have a significant impact on the landowner, the neighbors, and the future of the community. There are often large financial stakes involved, and emotions can run high. What rules apply to how the governing board conducts these hearings? The key factor here is that public hearings on a rezoning and for all text amendments is legislative. The purpose of the hearing is to let members of the public tell the governing board why this would be good or bad. Giving citizen advice and opinions about the matter is the whole reason for the hearing. There may be numerous technical issues to consider, but ultimately rezoning is a policy choice to be made by elected officials who have to decide what is best for the landowner, the neighbors, the public, and the future of the city or county. These legislative hearings are very different from an evidentiary hearing and a quasi-judicial case. In those cases, special use permits, variances, appeals, the purpose of the hearing is to gather competent material evidence as to whether standards in the ordinance have been met. The rules for evidentiary hearings, such as witnesses under oath, limits on opinion testimony, and gathering evidence outside of the hearing, are discussed in detail in the module on evidentiary hearings. On the other hand, with legislative hearings, speakers need not be under oath, and they are free to express opinions about the wisdom of the proposed action.
Didn't that just say that the legislative hearing, when people are talking, it's not as competent as quasi-judicial?
Yeah, it could be anybody that can come and speak against it or for it, because it's just their sole opinion, they don't have to be, but,
It's so biased.
yeah, it could be very biased. But in the quasi-judicial, that's why you gotta have people to make sure they've got standing, can't have hearsay, can't say, well, my sister doesn't like this too, and she lives down the street. Well, you know, why is your sister not here? Because that's hearsay. We don't know your sister for sure says it, just because you say that. And then, you know, it's got to have, you know, somebody saying they're up there talking about how this is going to hurt the environment and it's going to endanger species, but they're not an expert on the species or anything. They're, you know, it's not their expertise, and they're not really an expert witness on that. Sometimes people have to say, I've got an expert witness here that knows about soil and how this is going to affect the water system, but they work at Walmart. They're not an expert on that. They're not a biologist or a botanist or anything like that. So,
But the legislative hearing is usually the Board of Aldermen listening to that.
yeah, that's just the legislative opinions so that they don't have to get as detailed. They can just go however.
You're on the board long enough, you'll see some violations.
That is not to say that no rules can be applied to public comments at legislative hearings. Unduly repetitious or irrelevant comments can be barred. Reasonable time limits can be imposed. For example, each speaker can be limited to a set time, such as 5 or 10 minutes each. Each side can be given a set time to present their case, or a total length can be set for the hearing. It is acceptable to allow only a single person to speak to represent a group with similar concern, with perhaps a showing of hands by all those who agree. It is appropriate to have sign-up sheets to manage participation. While public hearing rules of this type are common and legally acceptable, care should be taken to conduct an essentially fair hearing. For example, the local government should not allow the rules to be manipulated to permit one side in a contested rezoning to monopolize the entire hearing without giving the other side a reasonable opportunity to comment. Once the City Council has considered Melanie's application, the staff analysis, planning board recommendations, and public comments, they deliberate and make a decision. What factors can the council consider in reaching a decision? For the most part, the decision on how particular property should be zoned and the substance of development regulations is left to the good judgment and discretion of elected officials. There are statutory and constitutional protections for a few particular land uses. These will be discussed in future modules. But for the most part, the decision is within the discretion of the governing board. If local residents conclude the elected officials are making bad zoning ordinance decisions, the remedy is usually at the ballot box rather than at the courthouse. There are nonetheless some guidelines on legitimate and factors when considering any development regulation amendment. The primary consideration when reviewing a potential amendment to a development regulation is the potential future land use impact on the landowner, the neighbors, and the public. Factors such as the suitability of the site for the proposed uses, impacts on traffic, utility availability, impacts on the environment or neighborhood character, and on school capacity are all legitimate consideration? Will there be adequate public infrastructure to support the development that would be allowed? Would the development unduly harm neighboring property values or otherwise adversely affect the surrounding neighborhood? What sort of fiscal impact would this have for the local government? What sort of precedent or pattern would this set? Would this advance the goals and policies set in the comprehensive plan? All of these are fair questions and legitimate questions to ask when considering a rezoning. There are several factors that may not be a part of these decisions. These include the race, ethnicity, religion, income, or character of residents of the proposed project. Factors unrelated to land use impacts are also off limits. For example, our courts have held that whether a residence would be owner-occupied or occupied by renters is not a legitimate zoning consideration. The land use impacts of permitting multifamily development can certainly be considered, but whether the building is an owner-occupied condominium or a renter-occupied apartment building is irrelevant for zoning purposes. Unlike quasi-judicial decisions, no written findings of fact are required for ordinance adoption, repeal, or amendments. There is no requirement for substantial evidence to support the decision because these are policy choices for elected officials. However, the governing board must approve a written statement on each zoning amendment decision that addresses plan consistency and how the decision is reasonable and in the public interest. The substance of the governing board statement is not subject to judicial review, but its existence and whether it includes a description and explanation is subject to judicial review. Having a written statement from the staff or planning board in the record before the governing board is not sufficient unless the governing board affirmatively approves the statement. A checklist or conclusory statement that the amendment is consistent with the plan and is reasonable is also insufficient. If the rezoning involved is a spot zoning or conditional zoning, the documentation that there is a reasonable basis for the decision is all the more important. Additional information about spot zoning and conditional zoning is included in future modules. Consider this. Melanie has submitted detailed traffic engineering reports that show how the traffic expected to be generated by her project will be handled. These reports show that if left turn lanes are added at entrances to the site, the existing city streets can handle the additional traffic. The city traffic staff has submitted a report concurring with this analysis. However, a large number of neighbors spoke at the hearing about their belief that the project would lead to adverse traffic impacts on their neighborhoods. While offering their concerns, the neighbors had no expert analysis to offer. If the city council agrees with the neighbors, can it deny Melanie's rezoning request because of adverse traffic impacts? On the next slide, you'll be able to select the correct answer, then collect the submit button to receive feedback. When you're ready to move to start the quiz, select the continue button on the slide.
I'm going to say no. Yes. They can? Why not? It's their
But based on the adverse traffic impacts, the neighbors don't have any proof of that other than their belief.
Wait a minute.
That makes sense, but I think he's right.
Well, wait a minute. Are we saying that they're going to
They don't have,
specifically?
they haven't got any evidence. Can the board go ahead and agree with them
Remember,
anyway?
it's legislative, it's not quasi-judicial.
They don't need to work with facts.
So the answer is yes.
Oh, what can I speak up?
I want a copy of that.
would be necessary in the hearing record to support the finding that the project is unsafe due to traffic problems. However, with a legislative decision, the council may consider citizens' opinions about the desirability and wisdom of the proposed amendment. Expert testimony is not required to support the council's discretionary decision on a rezoning.
Wait just a minute, I have a question. So they're all,
Continue with the module by selecting continue on your screen.
so all of the public hearings are legislative.
For rezonings or text amendments.
Okay.
But a public hearing, like we will have next month for the indoor gun range, is going to be a quasi-judicial for a special use permit.
That runoff line is saying that the solid road.
Rules on the planning board.
That was a
So
special
I,
use
so
permit.
I guess, so what determines, which one that it, what kind of hearing it's gonna be, whether it's being quasi-judicial or legislative?
It depends on the type of
The top,
development.
what's
development.
what's being decided.
Yeah, it's the type of development. Somebody like when we did the apartments, when we,
Affordable housing,
on Silent Road. That was big, because it was the sheer, our ordinance, our zoning ordinance requires anything over 10 units to go through a special use permit, which they had 60, so that until made it, they had to apply for a special use permit.
I see, okay, all right, gotcha.
Same thing occurred on Rolling Mill Road with the affordable housing out there. At the public hearing, a lot of people were worried about the traffic at the public hearing, but I guess their specialists said it was gonna be all right.
I guess with, that one predated me, and I just think it was in the files, but that was also, they had a traffic analysis study done there. And I'm sure that's why they said it would be enough from the study or something. But that's kind of your expert analysis.
So the alderman went with the
So
expert on
does,
that one.
so I have another question. Does Franklin have a traffic analysis
Yeah.
team? I mean, Lord.
No, what happens is,
Would that just
What
be
state does it?
well, state will do them, they can do them, but generally, when you go to a special use permit, we require the developer to provide one.
Oh,
So then they go out and find a firm that does it.
oh.
And there's a
So
difference.
we don't have one in place, a firm that.
No, we don't have like, you need to hire this firm. or
I see,
something.
okay.
We don't recommend, make recommendations like
If the book is that thick on it, all you do is go to the last page. You read what it was about, go to the last page and make sure you
I have to
find
read
it on
one
the
that
rest of the
big.
book. You get there.
There are two additional factors that need to be addressed before the governing board votes on Melanie's rezoning request. The first is determining how many votes are required to adopt an amendment, and the second is determining which members are eligible to vote. The general rule is that any amendment to a development regulation can be adopted by a majority of the governing board. There is an important exception to this rule for zoning map amendments. State law mandates the
Just so you know, these next two slides are no longer in date because the state has now they took protest petitions out. And, we no longer can't have protest petitions, which very rarely anybody ever did one anyway. So we'll listen to them, but it's kind of old info.
for citizens. Protest petitions are not available with county zoning. So what is a zoning protest petition?
I wonder what it was.
What was it? What would happen, they weren't the easiest to understand anyway. What would happen is somebody come in and do a rezoning, and there was a neighbor, say there was a neighbor that got notified, and he didn't like it. He would protest it, and the way it worked, if their property alone was at least would equal to 10% of the area that's being zoned, then they could, them alone, applying for a protest petition would require a super majority vote. Wouldn't be to just kick it out, but it would require a super majority, so it couldn't, when it got to town council to vote, instead of normally if it was a 4-3 vote, and it would pass, now it had to be a super majority where it had to be, it had to be at least like a 5-2 vote. And that seems to then manage. That was really the only thing that would change, but you would go through all this. It wouldn't really change the output much. It was just then throwing more step for staff to do lots of times. Unless sometimes it probably weren't.
When zoning was first authorized by states in the 1920s, some thought was given to allowing landowners to veto any future changes in the zoning of their property. It was concluded that this would be an unlawful delegation of legislative power. So an alternative was developed to protect the interests of those landowners who rely on the existing zoning. The solution was to create a process where if a sufficient number of those who would be most directly affected by a change object to the amendment, a supermajority of the city council is necessary to change the zoning of the property. A qualified protest petition triggers a requirement that a rezoning must be adopted by a 3/4 vote of the governing board. Vacant seats and the seat of a member with a conflict of interest are not considered in computation of this supermajority. A second important factor about voting on an amendment to a development regulation is avoiding improper conflicts of interest. It is important to remember that these are legislative decisions, and elected officials generally have an obligation to vote on every case. Unlike a quasi-judicial decision, governing board members do not need to be impartial. They may discuss pending cases outside the hearing, and they may hold firm personal opinions about the desired outcome. But if a decision would have a direct, substantial, readily identifiable financial impact on a member, that member must not vote on a legislative zoning decision. This rule applies both to the city council and the planning board. The member may participate in the discussion, but may not vote. Some local ordinances prohibit members with a financial interest in the outcome from participating even in the discussion of the case, which may well be a good practice, but it is not mandated by state law. Consider this. Matt Jennings is a member of the Normalton City Council. He lives in the neighborhood adjacent to Melanie's proposed development, but on the opposite end of the neighborhood. His house is about 10 blocks from Melanie's property. He is a former president of the neighborhood association and ran for city council as a vigorous neighborhood advocate. Matt attended a neighborhood meeting the week before the rezoning hearing, where there was extensive discussion of the proposed rezoning. Matt's wife signed a petition opposing the rezoning. The day before the hearing, Matt told a reporter for the Normalton Gazette that he had been elected to the city council precisely to stop the sort of travesty being proposed by Melanie. Is Matt allowed to vote on this matter?
Yes.
On the next slide, you'll be able to select the correct answer. Please click the submit button to receive
Well,
feedback.
he's not financially.
When you're ready to start the quiz,
It's yes,
select the
Daddy.
continue button on the slide.
No, for us, it would be
Gets
Oh,
good,
that's-
because we couldn't talk to anybody outside. But he's on the legislative board, so he should be able to do whatever he wants.
This is just for rezoning. This isn't for quasi-judicial.
Right. Those aldermen have it easy, or does.
They can get away with murder.
I think it can be. I mean, this is, again, it's not a legislative.
It's not affecting him financially, so I think.
Now, they would have it appealed and said certain things on record.
I think he can
That
vote.
might-
I'm
that
not
might-
sure.
that
I'm
might
not
have grounds to
100% sure
appeal.
that's right. But he's not affected financially.
No.
Oh, well.
Correct answer is
Good.
if this were a
Yeah,
quasi-judicial
so
matter,
far.
the discussion outside of the hearing, ties to those opposing the project, and having a bias could disqualify her from participation. However, with a legislative decision such as a rezoning, impartiality is not required. Thus, she is required to vote unless there is a financial conflict of interest.
And that goes the same for the others. I mean, you could have a, as long as it's the same, just because it's rezoning, you could have, you know, it to me in the paper say, I don't like this, and I ain't gonna recommend it. And that's fine for rezoning, but he said that prior to a quasi-judicial, and that lets you get, he's got a free, he hasn't heard the info yet. So he's already got these bias. And he can't be swayed. Now, no way I'm gonna vote for this special use permit. And that's when he could ask to be recused, or, because if he's not giving his fair share to the applicant, or hearing the evidence. But rezoning, you can just, because it's legislative, you can just, you can have a prior to, that's okay. I think we're about toward the end.
You may continue.
He can vote.
Another key difference between legislative and quasi-judicial decisions is whether they may be reconsidered. When a final quasi-judicial decision is made, it is binding and the board has no jurisdiction to rehear the same case. There must be some material change in the application, the ordinance, or conditions on the site in order to bring it up again. By contrast, there is no statutory or constitutional limit on reconsideration of a legislative zoning decision. This raises the prospect of a disappointed applicant for a rezoning bringing the same case back to the city or county time after time. This could place a real burden on the neighbors, the staff, and local boards having to review the same project multiple times. To prevent that inefficiency, many local ordinances provide that once a decision is made on a rezoning proposal, no other zoning petitions affecting that property can be considered for a specified time. The time limit varies, but is often 6 months or a year. Each ordinance specifies what triggers a waiting period. It may be a hearing on a rezoning for that parcel, definition of a rezoning, or some other defined point in the zoning amendment process. While a waiting period is not mandated by state law, if a waiting period is placed in the zoning ordinance, it is binding and it must be observed.
You have to know.
Do we have a timetable?
On
Reconsideration? The time limit?
No, I don't think we don't have any info like that. Reconsideration.
You early.
Gives me an idea.
They just reapply, they can just reapply and ask again, you know. I don't think it's really ever come up.
Most rational do that. Well,
Well, I mean,
didn't
you
you just
know,
tell you it's like a child? I just told you.
some people would do that.
Just to, because they can.
Because they think.
Yeah, just because they think that's
Right.
what you will.
Legislative regulatory decisions have a significant
Right.
impact on property owners, neighbors, and local governments. State statutes give great discretion to each city and county to determine what regulations are best for their own situation. But state law sets detailed mandatory procedures that must be followed to assure that all Amendments are adopted or rejected by simple majority vote of the governing board. The exception is where there is a valid protest petition or a city rezoning, which triggers a 3/4 majority vote requirement.
Which that's,
Planning board and governing board members are not allowed to vote on matters that are likely to have substantial financial impact on the member. These requirements are intended to establish a consistent, open, and fair process. Carefully following them is not only a legal requirement, but helps ensure public confidence in the integrity of the process.
How would you define substantial?
yeah, so, well, like, the one examples I can remember of anybody recusing himself was Larry, would sometimes recuse himself in a planning board because, he did the applicant's taxes.
Yeah.
And I can see it, but it could be kind of a gray area, because he didn't have a direct, you can see, he doesn't have a direct substantial financial impact with the project. Maybe with the applicant, but not with the project, so you can kind of see, it's just not hurting anything by him recusing himself just to take that question out.
So if someone bought a different property from y'all, but not the property in question, they could still stay on the board.
Yeah, it was something else, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not like it's your, it would be like if Todd or Peter was representing the person that buys the property as their realtor. That could maybe be a conflict.
Oh, no, that's not a conflict. Oh, yes.
Against
But,
Yes, against it. But that even means that if my brother was sitting there and he wanted some kind of relief sign or whatnot, I had no financial interest to it whatsoever. Would it not?
from the way it's positioned, was you're not having direct, because you're not having direct substantial impact, that you're gonna be getting money as well because of this. You're a 30% investor in this project, then,
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, let's face it, everybody knows someone in this town is gonna show up and sit in those seats over there, unless you said, financial, something gain or.
just because they're your neighbor doesn't mean you can't vote on it. A lot of times, a lot of people will vote on this. You know, that's usually not even, not a reason either.
If it's controversial, it might.
Find more information on land use planning, development regulation, that appears on your screen. Please contact me using the information on the screen if you have any questions. Thank you for viewing the Land Development Regulation Module.
Anyone in favor of adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second, all in favor of adjournment?
See.
It was helpful. It's nice to see other people
It was good to
voting
see
on
that.
these questions.
Yeah.
Not getting them.
I was looking for Melanie was all happy. Did she get it or not?
Thankful the whole through.
Yeah, I wanted to see that, how that.